The 5th of June, 1944. 2 hours. England. The dark sky hangs heavy over the bustling Allied base at Southwick House. General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands at the front of the war room, surrounded by his top commanders. A silence grips the room as the weight of the impending operation settles in. In less than 12 hours, the largest amphibious assault in history will unfold across the beaches of Normandy. The countdown has begun. Eisenhower's voice is steady as he delivers his final orders. He speaks not only as a commander, but as a symbol of unity for the disparate forces that are about to land on the beaches. British, American, Canadian, and Free French forces are ready, each one a piece of the vast puzzle that will secure victory in Western Europe. But the Germans, entrenched along the coast, have no idea what's coming. Eisenhower's strategy is simple yet audacious. Overwhelm the enemy with coordinated attacks from the sea, the air, and the land. The invasion force will hit 5 beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword, and push inland with the goal of securing a beachhead. A monumental task, but Eisenhower is confident that Allied cooperation, the precision of their planning, and the element of surprise will make it possible. Just days before, the Allies executed one of the most elaborate deception campaigns in military history, Operation Bodyguard. The Germans were convinced the invasion would come at Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. The Allies had constructed a fake army, complete with inflatable tanks and phony radio transmissions, to throw off the enemy. The deception was so convincing that the Germans held their forces in reserve, waiting for an assault that never came. As Eisenhower prepares to board his staff car for the final time before the invasion, he knows the price of failure is high. If this invasion fails, the war could drag on for years. But the success of this mission is vital to securing the liberation of France and ultimately the defeat of Nazi Germany. "Let's go," Eisenhower mutters to his aide before stepping into the night's chill. The moment has arrived. The 6th of June, 1944, to 6:30 hours, Normandy. The skies above the beaches of Normandy are a battlefield in their own right. Allied bombers streak across the sky, their engines roaring as they release their payloads, targeting German defenses along the coastline. Below them, the invasion fleet, a vast armada of over 5,000 ships, cuts through the waves. In the distance, German forces remain largely unaware of the scale of the assault. They expect the beaches to be targeted in waves, but nothing could have prepared them for the relentless storm of firepower that is about to descend upon them. The first waves of American infantry hit the beaches of Utah and Omaha, their landing craft slicing through the water in perfect synchrony. But they are not alone. From the moment the first assault troops disembark, they are met with fierce resistance. The German defenses, though formidable, are no match for the unyielding tide of men and machines that pour onto the beaches. From the sky, paratroopers land behind enemy lines, securing key crossroads and cutting off vital supply routes. The Germans, stunned by the precision and speed of the assault, struggle to respond. On Omaha Beach, the scene is chaos. The soldiers push forward despite the relentless machine gun fire that rakes the shore, knowing that each step brings them closer to securing the beachhead. Some are knocked down by artillery, but they rise again, determined to carry out their orders. Amid the smoke and confusion, the air is thick with the sounds of explosions, gunfire, and the cries of the wounded. But amidst this hell, the Allied coordination. To the east, British and Canadian forces secure Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches with similar precision. The landings, though not without their difficulties, unfold with the same relentless drive. The Germans are thrown off balance, unable to anticipate the full scale of the invasion or the timing of the attack. As the hours pass, the Germans scramble to respond, but their efforts are fragmented. The Allies' overwhelming presence and rapid advance shatter their ability to mount an effective counterattack. Eisenhower's vision, an operation that blends air, sea, and land forces in a synchronized assault, has come to life. The Germans, isolated and stunned, realize too late that they are not fighting an army of separate nations. They are facing a unified force with one goal: victory. The 6th of June, 1944, 13 hours, Normandy. The first few hours of the invasion have been brutal, but the Allies are pressing forward. With each passing hour, more and more troops hit the beaches, securing a foothold in the heart of Nazi-occupied France. By now, the Germans are realizing the full scope of the invasion. The German response is chaotic. Their troops, spread thin along the coastline, are caught off guard by the ferocity of the attack. In the fog of war, communication breaks down. The Germans, still uncertain of the true landing site, struggle to reposition their forces in time. Allied forces, however, move with a precision that belies the scale of the operation. Every step is choreographed, every action planned, as the tide of the battle shifts irrevocably in their favor. On the western side of the landing zone, American forces advance rapidly. They encounter stiff resistance, but the Germans cannot hold the line. As more divisions pour onto the beaches, the weight of the Allied assault becomes overwhelming. German positions, once thought to be impenetrable, begin to crack. Mortar fire and machine gun barrages continue to rain down, but the Allies push forward with relentless determination, fighting their way inch by inch toward their objectives. Further east, British and Canadian forces have secured their own beachheads, facing similar resistance but utilizing effective tactics and overwhelming firepower. British engineers and artillery lay down constant bombardment, suppressing German positions and making it easier for infantry units to advance. The Germans, caught off guard and unsure where the next strike would come from, are unable to mount a cohesive defense. At 14 hours, German command realizes the true scale of the attack. The beaches have been secured, and Allied forces are pushing inland. For all the initial confusion and resistance, the Germans are now fighting a losing battle, isolated on the beaches, their reserves scattered and vulnerable. Despite desperate counterattacks by the Luftwaffe and Panzer divisions, the Allies' momentum is unstoppable. They have effectively broken through the German defensive lines, and the beachhead is secure. Back in London, Eisenhower receives the first reports of success. The invasion has been a stunning success so far, but the battle is far from over. The next phase of the operation will involve securing key towns and pushing deeper into France. Yet, the Germans are now fully aware that they are fighting a war on two fronts, the Western Allies in Normandy and the Soviet juggernaut. The realization hits hard. The Allies' strategy of overwhelming force and flawless coordination has worked. The German defensive system, which had been built with such confidence, is crumbling under the weight of the Allied assault. The beachhead is now a stronghold, and from here, the Allies will move to liberate France and eventually defeat. The Germans, in their fragmented state, know they are running out of options. As Eisenhower looks at the reports, he knows the invasion has succeeded, but the real battle is just beginning. The 6th of June, 1944. 18 hours. Normandy. The sun dips low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the blood-soaked sands of Omaha Beach. The waves that had carried the first wave of Allied soldiers are now stained red, the cost of the day's battle evident in the fallen men who never made it ashore. The beach, once a symbol of liberation, has become a graveyard, a brutal reminder of the human price of war. For those who survived, the fight continues. Private First Class James "Jimmy" Moore, part of the 29th Infantry Division, is among the fortunate few to have made it across the beach. His face is streaked with sweat, dust, and blood. He stumbles over the body of a fallen comrade, the weight of the moment sinking in. Every foot of ground gained has cost them dearly, but Moore keeps moving, pushing forward, knowing that his brothers in arms need him. His thoughts are a blur of commands, gunfire, and the screams of the wounded. Beside him, Corporal Charles Griffin, also with the 29th, takes a moment to catch his breath. He kneels briefly to reload his rifle before standing again, his hands shaking but determined. "Keep moving," he mutters to Moore, his voice hoarse from the smoke and dust. The pair moves inland, slowly but steadily, securing buildings and establishing defensive positions. It is a grueling, exhausting process, each step forward feeling like a victory, yet each step brings them closer to the next fight. Meanwhile, on the British and Canadian beaches, the scene is no less harrowing. Lieutenant Sarah Carter, part of the Royal Army Medical Corps, tends to the wounded in the chaos of Gold Beach. She is surrounded by soldiers, young men who will never make it home, their wounds too severe to survive. The makeshift medical station is a blur of activity. The sounds of distant explosions and gunfire mix with the quiet sobs of the injured. Carter moves swiftly, her hands steady despite the carnage around her. She knows that each life she saves is one more soldier who will fight tomorrow. The human cost of the invasion is undeniable, and the survivors are forever changed by the brutality they have witnessed. The beaches are littered with the dead, the maimed, and the broken. Each fallen soldier represents a story of sacrifice, of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. The true weight of the operation cannot be measured in mere tactics and strategies. It lies in the lives lost and the wounds carried home by. On the German side, the defenders are no less human, and their experience of the invasion is one of chaos and despair. Sergeant Wilhelm Braun, stationed at a machine gun post on Omaha Beach, watches in disbelief as the Allied forces surge forward. The shock of the attack is overwhelming. He had prepared for a landing, but not this. The sheer scale of the assault, the speed at which the Americans push forward, is unlike anything he had imagined. As his comrades fall around him, Braun realizes the futility of his position. There are no reinforcements coming, no hope of holding the line. The German defense, spread too thin and overwhelmed by the precise, coordinated Allied assault, begins to collapse. Braun's machine gun jams, and he is forced to abandon his position. He retreats into the dunes, the sound of enemy fire ringing in his ears. There is no glory in this retreat, just survival. But he knows that for him and the rest of the German defenders, the battle is lost. The Allies are not just fighting a battle, they are fighting a war of attrition, and the German defense is crumbling under the weight of it. As the day fades into evening, the first reports of success reach Eisenhower. The beaches have been secured, but at a great cost. The German forces, despite their efforts, are in disarray. The Allies, though exhausted, have gained a foothold in France that will prove impossible to dislodge. The momentum is on them, but Eisenhower knows that the human toll is only beginning. The victory on the beaches is a momentary triumph in a long and grueling campaign. The fight is far from over, and the true battle for Europe has just begun. The 7th of June, 1944. 9 hours. Normandy. The sound of Allied artillery continues to echo across the Normandy countryside as the first daylight reveals the full extent of the invasion. The beaches, now secured, are filled with the debris of battle-abandoned landing crafts, discarded ammunition, and the remnants of vehicles left behind in the rush to push inland. On the horizon, the rolling fields of France stretch out, seemingly peaceful, but they conceal a new kind of fight. General Eisenhower's strategy had been clear: gain a beachhead, then secure the key towns that would allow the Allies to press deeper into France. The first orders are given. The 4th Infantry Division, along with support from airborne troops, is tasked with advancing towards Carentan, a strategic town that would allow the Allies to link up with the forces on Utah Beach and solidify the American position in the Carentan Peninsula. The Germans are in disarray, but they are not defeated. The initial shock of the invasion has worn off, and now the reality of a counterattack begins to set in. German forces retreat toward the inland fortifications of Street Low, but they are not without resistance. Panzers are mobilized and rush to slow the Allied advance, but their movements are hindered by poor coordination and the chaos of retreat. Private Jimmy Moore, still with the 29th Infantry Division, is part of the push inland. The town of Carentan lies just ahead, but it is heavily defended. Moore, now familiar with the incessant sound of machine gun fire, feels a grim sense of purpose settle into him as he pushes toward the town's outskirts. His unit fights tooth and nail to secure the roads, but every inch of ground comes at a cost. Mortars fall around them, and the booming of artillery shakes the earth beneath their feet. As the battle for Carentan intensifies, Lieutenant Sarah Carter and the Royal Army Medical Corps are once again called into action. In the heat of the fighting, the wounded are brought in by the dozen, many beyond saving, others with severe injuries. Amidst the chaos, Carter remains composed. Her task is not only to treat the wounded, but to keep hope alive, to remind those around her that each life matters. Yet, even she can feel the weight of the day's toll. The wounded stretch the resources of her team to the limit, and the medical tents overflow. By 16 hours, Carentan is nearly surrounded. American forces are moving in from all sides, but the Germans hold strong. In the town's narrow streets, American infantrymen fight house by house, room by room. The battle is a brutal urban fight, one that will not be won easily. Tank fire and infantry engagements merge in a symphony of destruction as German soldiers dig in, determined to deny the Allies their prize. On the German side, Sergeant Wilhelm Braun, now part of the retreating forces, witnesses the disarray of his comrades. The battle, which had begun with such confidence, is now slipping through their fingers. He had watched his comrades fall, those who had fought so hard to hold the beaches, now being forced to retreat under fire. Braun's nerves are frayed. Every retreat, every withdrawal, feels like a failure, yet it is the only option available to him. As he crouches in the trenches outside Carentan, the realization hits him. The Allies are advancing at a pace that the Germans simply cannot match. The communication breakdowns, the lack of reinforcements, and the sheer power of the Allied forces have shattered their defense. Braun's platoon, once proud defenders of Normandy, is now scattered, unable to mount any coordinated counterattack. Back on the Allied side, the pressure is mounting. Despite the victory on the beaches, there are still miles to cover, and the German forces continue to fight from the depths of their fortifications. The town of Carentan remains a tough nut to crack, and it will take all the resources at the Allies' disposal to secure it. But Eisenhower knows that with every inch they gain, they move closer to Paris, to the ultimate objective of liberating France. As the day turns to night, the Allied troops on the front lines have made significant progress. Carentan is now within reach, and the momentum of the invasion is beginning to turn the tide against the German forces. But as Eisenhower surveys the battle from afar, he knows this is only one step in a much longer campaign. The battle for France, for Western Europe, is far from over. Every victory won on the beaches and every town liberated comes at a price, one that is paid in blood and sacrifice. The 8th of June, 1944. 12 hours. Carentan, Normandy. The summer sun beats down on the streets of Carentan as American forces inch closer to their ultimate objective, total control of the town. After 2 days of brutal urban combat, the German defenses are crumbling. Every house, every building, and every street corner has been fought over, and each one is soaked in the blood of both German and Allied soldiers. The air is thick with the smell of smoke, gunpowder, and burning debris as the final pockets of resistance hold out in the town's center. Private Jimmy Moore, his face smeared with sweat and dirt, is finally able to catch his breath. The battle for Carentan has taken a toll on him. He's weary, exhausted from the relentless fighting, but there's a fire in his chest that won't let him stop. He and his comrades had pushed forward through the stench of death, the sound of enemy fire ricocheting off the walls, and the constant fear of the unknown. As they move down another street, Moore sees the German defensive positions beginning to thin. The panzers, which had been so effective at holding the line, are nowhere to be seen. The sound of distant explosions grows fainter as the Germans fall back, retreating to a stronger defensive position further inland. The realization settles in this battle. This part of the campaign has been won. The Allies have broken through, and Carentan will soon be under their control. But Moore knows that the victory has come at a heavy price. Across the battlefield, the wounded are still being evacuated. Lieutenant Sarah Carter, once again at the front lines of the medical effort, has seen the worst of the fighting. The makeshift field hospitals are overflowing, and it feels as if every wounded soldier from both sides is being brought in for treatment. Many will survive, but for others, it is too late. Yet even as she works tirelessly to save as many as possible, she sees a glimmer of hope. The momentum is shifting. The Allies are on the verge of something far greater than just holding the beaches. They are on the verge of breaking the German grip on Western Europe. By early afternoon, Carentan is all but secured. The remaining German forces have pulled back, leaving behind shattered units and abandoned positions. The German command, realizing the failure of their defense, scrambles to fortify the next line of defense further inland. But the damage has been done. The Germans have lost precious time, and their ability to mount a coherent counterattack has been fractured by the swift and overwhelming Allied assault. In the command tents, General Eisenhower receives word of the victory at Carentan. He allows himself a brief moment of relief, but his mind is already on the next phase of the operation. The success of the landings and the breakthrough at Carentan have changed the course of the battle, but the war is far from won. The Allies have gained a vital foothold in Normandy, but they must now push forward, liberating more towns and cities in the face of an ever more desperate German defense. The road to Paris is long, and it will be paved with blood and sacrifice. Meanwhile, the German High Command, still reeling from the initial shock of the invasion, begins to reevaluate its position. General Erwin Rommel, one of the most respected commanders of the German military, is in southern France, trying desperately to gather reinforcements for the failing Normandy defense. He knows the situation is dire, but he refuses to accept defeat. His forces, though scattered and under strength, will fight until the last man, despite the shifting tides of the war. But as the day wears on, the realization sinks in for Rommel and the rest of the German leadership. Normandy, once seen as an impenetrable fortress, is now a beachhead for the Allies. The combined power of air superiority, naval firepower, and overwhelming numbers is simply too much for the crumbling German defenses to handle. They are losing ground fast, and the gap between the Allies and their final objectives is shrinking. In the moments of relative calm after the battle for Carentan, Eisenhower knows that the war in Europe is entering a new phase. The landings, while successful, were only the beginning. The battle for Normandy and for Western Europe will be long and hard. The Allies will face more resistance, more challenges, and more moments of agony and triumph. But today, they have turned the tide. Today, the Germans no longer hold the advantage. They are on the defensive. The collapse of German defenses in Normandy, the Allied breakthrough at Carentan, and the subsequent momentum of the invasion mark a critical inflection point. Eisenhower and his commanders know that they must press on, but as the sun sets over the liberated town, there is a sense that the tides of war are no longer in. The 10th of June, 1944, 18 hours, Carentan, Normandy. The once bustling streets of Carentan now lay quiet, their homes and businesses reduced to rubble. The smoke has cleared, the sounds of battle faded, but the scars of the fight remain. The Allied forces have fully secured the town, and their momentum pushes them steadily westward toward Paris. The victory at Carentan, though hard-fought and costly, has broken the German defensive line in Normandy, and the Allies now control a critical artery that will facilitate further advancements across France. For the soldiers on the ground, the victory is bittersweet. Private Jimmy Moore and his fellow infantrymen have been through hell, their bodies sore, their minds weary. The camaraderie that bound them during the battle now feels like a distant memory. Too much has happened, too many lives lost. The silence that now surrounds them feels as heavy as the gunfire that once filled the air. And yet, amidst the exhaustion, there is a spark of hope. The Americans have pushed through, fought through, and secured the first major town on their way to liberating France. But the war is far from over. Carentan is just one small piece of a much larger puzzle. The Germans, though stunned by the speed and effectiveness of the Allied assault, have not surrendered. They are digging in, regrouping, and preparing for the next phase of the fight. The retreat from Carentan has been a painful one for the Germans, but it is not the end of the road for them. The Allies must now press on, deeper into France. For Lieutenant Sarah Carter and the Royal Army Medical Corps, the aftermath is filled with endless hours of work. The wounded, both from the invasion and the subsequent fighting, are brought in from the front lines. Many will recover and return to the fight, but some will carry the scars of battle for the rest of their lives. Carter moves from patient to patient, her hands stained with the remnants of war, her heart heavy with the loss of life she has witnessed. But there is also a sense of pride that she has been part of something greater than herself, part of a mission that will change the course of history. Meanwhile, Eisenhower watches from afar as the forces he has commanded continue to push forward. The liberation of Carentan and the rapid advance of the Allies in Normandy has given him a sense of cautious optimism, but he knows that the hard work is far from over. The Germans, though in disarray, are still formidable, and the road to Paris will be long and bloody. There are still countless battles to be fought, and every step forward will be contested by a. The liberation of Carentan marks a crucial turning point in the Normandy campaign. It is the first major victory in the effort to free France from Nazi occupation, but it is only the beginning. The momentum gained in Normandy will carry the Allies forward, but it will be met with fierce resistance. The Germans are retreating, but they are far from defeated. They will fight to the last man, as they have done before, and they will attempt to slow the. As the weeks pass, the Allies continue to advance. The liberation of Paris is only a matter of time, and with each victory, the German hold on France weakens. But the legacy of the battles fought in Normandy, the blood spilled, the sacrifices made, and the courage displayed will forever echo in the hearts of those who fought and those who were lost. The soldiers who stormed the beaches and fought house to house in towns like Carentan they have brought the world one step closer to victory, but at a great cost. Eisenhower's vision, the seamless coordination of the Allied forces, and the determination of the men and women who fought under his command have turned the tide of the war in Europe. The battle for France has been won, but the war is not over. The road to Berlin remains long and uncertain, but the Allies are no longer just a force of resistance, they are the force that will liberate Europe. As Carentan is fully secured, Eisenhower receives the word that the next phase of the invasion is already in motion. The next target is Street, Low, and then on to Cherbourg, the key port that will allow the Allies to sustain their push across Europe. Every victory brings the Allies closer to their goal, the defeat of Nazi Germany and the liberation of Europe from the grip of tyranny. But for now, as the sun sets over the battered town of Carentan, there is a moment of peace, albeit a fleeting one. The cost has been high, but the fight continues. The Allies have gained a foothold in France, and with it, they have opened the door to the eventual liberation of all of Europe. The road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the Germans are on the defensive, and the Allies are driving forward with unstoppable momentum. The battle for Europe is far from over, but it has irrevocably changed, and the Allies have gained the upper hand. The legacy of those who fought in Normandy, in the streets of Carentan, and on the beaches of D-Day will live on, as a testament to their courage, their sacrifice, and their determination to defeat tyranny.